I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
President Rutt,
Here.
Pro Tem Ford,
Here.
Councilmember Papachek,
Here.
Councilmember Camperoni,
Here.
Councilmember Lamb,
Here.
Councilmember Mosher, here, Councilmember Dandelides.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 4, presentations. We have one. Item 4A, presentation on 2025 retiree medical plan OPEB accounting report. Mr. McCleary.
Your Honor, members of council, you're scheduled to receive a presentation from Christian Veenstra, President of Watkins Ross Retirement Plan Consultants, Actuaries, and Administrators, on the 2025 Village of Lake Orion Retiree Medical Plan, or OPEB, annual report. And Chris can answer any questions council may have regarding the report after his presentation. Council will be asked subsequently to receive and file the report. Just as a little bit of an explanation, so our OPEB report, we have an actuarial valuation report done every year. That is for our retiree health insurance. As you know, the village eliminated retiree health insurance benefits for employees between, I think, 2010 and 2014 maybe. So the liabilities that we have as time goes on continue to decrease, but we will still have OPEB liabilities for a while. And with that, I will, if it's okay, Your Honor, I'll turn it over to Christian.
Thank you.
I mean, mine isn't working. I'm not, how do I do it?
Yep, just gotta, we'll go for it.
Yeah, but it didn't happen.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your service to your community. As was mentioned, this is a liability report associated with your retiree health care plan for those who are still covered by it. The version of my presentation today is something I did with another client recently and received some favorable feedback. So I thought I would take that same approach with you, albeit with your numbers. The way that I would describe an OPEB liability is to compare it to a situation where maybe your neighbor down the street has a pickup that you like, that you thought, hey, maybe someday I could buy that from him. And you talk to that neighbor and they say, you know what, I was thinking of selling it in 2 years for $24,000. And you thought, okay. And I just use a simple example so I could do the math in my head. With $24,000 in 2 years, if I set aside $1,000 a month, I'll be at my $24,000 in 2 years. The liability is a measurement of where you are at any given point along that savings plan. So if, for instance, you say, I'm going to set aside $1,000 a month, after 1 year, the measurement of the liability where you should be would be $12,000. You're 12 months in, you're halfway there. It's not what you have in the bank. You might have more, you might have less, but it's a way to determine how well you're doing towards that savings. So that's what the liability is. That $1,000 a month is what we call the service cost. And again, it's not a requirement that you put that money away, but if you wanted to, you could set it aside. And then finally, with that vehicle, you might say, I'm going to take out a loan when I get out in 2 years instead of funding this thing, and then I'll pay off my loan after I have that truck. And in a retiree health care situation, you have somewhat of a similar situation insofar as you might decide, we're not going to pre-fund that retiree health care before the person gets to retirement, but we're going to pay it on a pay-as-you-go basis once they retire. Or you might do a combination, set some money aside, do some on a pay-as-you-go basis once they retire. So with that example in mind, that comparison is in mind here, we're going to look at the funded status of your plan. We're going to look at all the pieces of the reconciliation from the beginning to the end of the year of the liability, and I'll refer back to my example when talking about these components. So again, the service cost, that's that $1,000 a month in the truck example that you might be thinking about setting aside before a person gets to retirement, before they have their entire health care benefit earned. The interest is if you do have an account set up and you expect that account to earn some kind of return on investment, then you don't have to put the whole $1,000 a month in. You might expect your money to earn 4%. So you'd put in something a little less. So if you want to measure where you're at, you would expect after a year you would have earned 4% of your assets, so your liability would expect to have grown 4% as well. So you have interest on your liability. And then the experience gain loss. What happens here is the neighbor says, you know what, a branch fell on my truck and I'll sell it to you, instead of for $24,000, I'll sell it to you for a little less. That might be an experience gain. You might think, oh, I don't have to have as much saved up. Or the person might come back to you and say, you know what, I kind of changed my mind. I really want more for that truck, $36,000. Now you've got an experience loss because you have to plan for more. So your liability bumps up as a way of saying, I've got to have more money set aside. And then the change in actuarial assumptions. Let's suppose you don't think that money in the bank is going to earn 4% after all. Let's say you think it's only going to earn 2%. Then, if you're measuring what you have to have set aside as your liability, you need more set aside because you're going to be earning less on your investment. So that's an increase in the liability, an increase in that measurement of where you need to be because of the change in assumptions. And then finally, benefit payments. To the extent that somebody's in retirement and you pay off some of their benefits during the course of the year, that's a benefit you no longer need to pay. That's a liability you no longer need to pay. So you have a reduction in your liability and you have a reduction in your assets. Now that took longer than maybe, we're going to go faster through the slides, but with that as a baseline, I think we'll be able to understand these numbers a lot better. So this is a page in your report that shows the beginning and end of year liability and the reconciliation. But let's take these pieces one at a time. Now, at the beginning, right away, you'll see, hey, we don't have $1.2 million in assets. Nope, you're right. I put that in as a dummy. And the reason I did that is to illustrate two things. One is that oftentimes a client will say, we are 100% funded. Do we need to put any more money in? And I would say yes, referring back to that example of the truck. If you're 1 year in and your liability is $12,000 and you have $12,000, you say, oh, I'm all set. I don't have to put any more money in. Yes, you do. You still have the $1,000 a month normal cost. And so with this illustration then, I highlighted the service cost, and I'm sorry I used normal cost and service cost interchangeably. You still have that service cost. So I highlighted that in yellow to show that if everything else happens the way everybody expects it to, at the end of the year, if you don't put in money to accommodate that service cost, if you don't put that $1,000 in the bank, 1 year later when you measure again, you're going to be that much less funded by the service cost, because that's a piece you theoretically could be considering funding. All the other pieces you'll see in this example wash out. You've got the interest on your liability because you expect your assets to grow, you expect your liability to grow, $81,214. And I plugged in a net investment income for the year of $82,567, less your administrative expenses, equals at 81,214. So you can see your liability and your assets walk hand in hand, growing at the same amount, and then the benefit payments reduce the liability by 100,000 and they reduce your assets by 100,000, so that at the end, as they walk hand in hand, the only piece that isn't offset is that $2,500 service cost. So you're $2,500 less well-funded at the end if you don't make that service cost. The experience gain loss. This is the actuarial experience that we didn't, that was a little bit different than what we anticipated. And in this particular case, the benefit payments were $1,000 higher than we projected for the year. And so it added a little bit of a loss to our liability calculation. The other thing in the green that created a loss is that your investment income was not $81,000. And you're saying, well, hey, wait a second, our assets did really well. How come you're saying they weren't what we expected? Well, for this example, it's because I'm starting with $1.2 million. That's why you didn't get $81,000. We'll clean that up in a minute. But the investment income then of $28,000 instead of $81,000 to offset the interest cost creates another increase or difference between the liability at the end and the assets at the end. The assets did not grow as expected, so that together with the $1,000 liability loss means you're $57,000 less well-funded at the end than you were at the beginning. One more, the change in actuarial assumptions. There were two assumption changes that caused the liability to be bigger, to say, hey, maybe you should have more assets set aside if you were to be pre-funding it. And one change was the investment manager said, we don't expect you to get 7%. We think it's going to be less than that, 6 point something. And it might have been high 6 and mid 6. But the point is, the investment manager thought the expected rate of return was going to be lower than originally expected. So that's a loss. The other thing is that healthcare costs are anticipated to increase more than what we had originally anticipated. So we added about half a percentage point, 50 basis points, about 0.5% per year additional inflation on healthcare costs. So that drove a $78,000 increase in the liability. So now the balance at the end of the year is $135,000 higher than expected. But oh wait, here's the good news. Not only did you put $10,000 into the plan to try to bulk up the assets a little bit, but you also paid the retiree health care benefits not from plan assets, but from general operating funds. And that is as if you made a $100,000 additional contribution, as if you had put it into the trust, immediately turned around and took it out and paid those retiree health care benefits. So the fact that you are paying those retiree health care benefits for the current retired participants is from general operating funds is in effect a contribution. So if you look at your total contribution then for the year, it's a little more than $110,000. That more than accounted for the change in the actuarial assumptions. It took care of that, and it took care of some of that expected rate of return. And then finally, we adjust to tie this all in with your report and the reconciliation. I went ahead and made the beginning of the year asset balance what it actually was, $255,000, so that your beginning of year liability, your prior year's report end of year liability less your assets was just under $1 million. And at the end of the year, it still remains just under $1 million, $24,000 higher. And that comes from, again, the change in assumptions, interest, return on investment not offsetting the interest on the liability. So that's where the plan stands from a liability standpoint versus an asset standpoint. Then what does this do with respect to decisions you might be considering? One is how well does your funding strategy right now of $10,000 plus paying the retiree health care benefits, how does that stack up to an actuarially determined contribution? And this is not a required contribution. It is only a benchmark against which you can measure the contribution decision you are making. And that is, if you were to amortize that unfunded liability at the beginning of the year, just less than $1 million, if you were to amortize it over 5 years, for instance, and the 5 is the average future working lifetime of the remaining active participants that are in your plan, you would have a $220,000 payment against the unfunded liability, plus a contribution to offset to cover that service cost of $2,500. Interest on those two to the end of the year gives a actuarially determined contribution. You can think of it as a recommended contribution of $238,000, of which you did contribute almost half of that, 47%, by virtue of paying the retiree health care benefits from general operating funds and the $10,000 you put in the plan. So that's not a bad funding, if you will, for the year. You put in roughly half the actuarially determined contribution. If you had put it all in, you would have another $127,000 of assets. And then finally, the asset allocation. I'm not qualified to give you investment advice. As actuaries, we are told explicitly not to. So it is merely to point out that when you do have a high number of retirees relative to your actives, as you do, if you have a very mature plan where things are trending down, as you do, you always have to keep in mind liquidity. Now, if you were taking money out of the trust itself, that would be a bigger deal, because then you'd say, let's be in fixed income so that we don't take money out when the market's down. But because your funding policy so far has been to pay the retiree health care benefits from general operating funds, that liquidity demand is not so critical. And so your investment blend right now is fine from a non-advisor standpoint. So I flew through a lot in a short amount of time, but I did see you had a long agenda, plus you were just coming out of a meeting. I'm happy to field questions.
Council? Mr. Lamb?
I've been here before for this presentation, and I still don't understand it. Thank you for supporting us with your deep knowledge of actuarial science and keeping this fund, going for our retirees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if it's any consolation, I read once that you have to hear it 7 times before it starts to click.
I'd have to run for re-election then. I'm not sure I want to do that.
Okay.
Mr. Danielides?
Yeah, so I guess the question I have, and this is probably more for you, Darwin, than you, but so this I get this as a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
But without knowing, I understand we have 13 employees and beneficiaries that are relying on this plan, I'll say. So the question that I have is, who are they? Are they retired yet or not? And the reason I'm interested in that is because who's looking out the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? If those 13 people are 95 years old right now, then that's one scenario. If those 13 people are 65 right now, then that's a totally different scenario. So my curiosity is, this is a great snapshot in time, but what does this look like in the future?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. And a note for me for next time, if we have the whole report up on the screen, and the reason I didn't is because it can be so voluminous, but if copies are made available to you at some point, if they haven't already, there is a page that has a 20-year expected payout. And what that does is give you an idea of the trend line of payments. And when you consider that healthcare has inflation on it, the fact that this trend line is going down means that people are in total aging out. So that projection of benefit payments, so you can keep that, That projection of benefit payments is for everybody in the plan. So you can see how that $100,000 a year is under control, if you will. We have some projections with open plans where that thing is blowing up to $1 million. And in your case, because you've taken the steps you have, it's going to, over time, become less and less a percentage of your overall operating budget.
But, and this is for the next 20 years. This is 2026 to 2045. And in 2045, it's still almost $80,000. So are those people living forever?
Well, so the big reason why it's still 80 is because healthcare costs in 20 years will be double in the projection what they are right now. So the fact that it's at or below what you're currently paying suggests that half those people will be gone by then.
But that's still 20 years out, and if they retired yesterday,
Yes.
that's,
George, if
Anyway,
I could chime in. So we do have one employee an active employee who is in the system. We have one inactive member who is not yet eligible for the benefits. And then we have 11 retirees and beneficiaries for a total of 13 people.
right, so instead of wasting everybody's time, so I sent you a request for information on Friday. Are you going to be able to give me this so I can get my head around it?
I will.
Okay.
I haven't seen your request yet, but I will look at it. The entire OPEB report is on our website, and so you can look at it. It has all the details in there. But I'll look at your request
Okay, thanks.
and accommodate that.
I would say this is year 7 for me of hearing a report, so I'm finally kind of getting it.
All
And
right.
I feel like it was very clear, probably the clearest presentation and report. One clarification item, Mr. McCleary, I don't see on the consent agenda, unless I'm missing it, where we have to receive and file this. I think it's missing off the consent agenda, so would that be appropriate to receive and file now?
It would be
then?
appropriate to make that motion.
Okay, then I will move to receive and file the presentation on the 2025 Retiree Medical Plan OPEB accounting report.
Support.
Any other council comments? Any public comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Item number 5, call to the public. Each person wishing to address the village council shall be afforded an opportunity to do so. If you wish to comment, please stand or raise your hand to indicate you'd wish to speak. And when you do, please provide your name and address, direct your comments to the chair, and remember that comments are limited to 4 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to speak on public comment on a non-agenda item? Mr. Stephen.
Move to an unfamiliar podium. My name is Harry Stephen. I live on North Shore Drive. Looking at our council, I believe 5 of you live on streets that do not have sidewalks. And I'm not sure about the rest of you. Many of the streets in the village don't have sidewalks, and those streets have short driveways and places where people park on the street, making the streets even narrower. The point of that is in 2020, a crash appeared in front of my house in which totaled the car that was parked in front of my house, and the vehicle that struck it was going fast enough that it turned over. So a significant accident took place. On Saturday, there was a rather large roar out on the street, and I went out there, and I paced off a wheel spinning operation that paced out at 180 feet. And it was not just a burnout, it was a acceleration and continuing. I estimate that it had to be going over 50 miles an hour by the completion of that burnout. This is on a very narrow street, and in my area, it's up a hill, so very, very dangerous. Speeding on North Shore is a regular occasion. There's traffic that goes up and down there, and it is a dead-end street, so many of the people who are speeding are people who reside on the street. Also, there's a stop sign at the corner of Church and North Shore, and it is used primarily as, let's slow down to somewhere around 10 miles an hour before we make the turn. So there is a problem on streets that are narrow with no sidewalks. I'm going to suggest that we need to come up with not the conventional 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on streets, but on the streets that don't have sidewalks, where people are walking, where children are dealing with it. And I know of one council person who walks the streets, that we should have a 15 or 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on streets that don't have sidewalks, so that people are sharing the street with vehicles that are moving up and down. I think that's the extent of this comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Rosemary Ford, 225 North Broadway. In walking around town, in particular on the east side here, there are some homes that have been vacant for quite some time. I know that they are looking into the house on East Church Street, but there's also a home on East Jackson Street, right at the corner of East Jackson and Washington Street. And that gentleman also passed away. And from what I understand, what I was told, and I would assume this is true, but I don't know, is that he had a reverse mortgage so that when something happened to him, the bank would take over the house. Well, what's unfortunate is it looks really bad. Fences are falling in. There's weeds popping up through the driveway, in the yard, all over the place. So I don't know so much if it's the council or if we have, because we have an ordinance officer, if they can somehow reach out and contact, because it's not fair to the neighbors around them that are keeping their properties up. And I just think that would be a nice consideration if that's something they could look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Kindred.
Donald Kindred. Y'all know where I live. I took a little walk down Jackson Street over here. Now, where I've seen water flowing toward Shadbolt, that way, goes right by a drain that we just had to have repaired. We had to have this drain repaired because something washed out the blacktop underneath it. However, from what I understand, I was told by Wes, they didn't find any water flowing there around that manhole cover. However, there was water flowing there at one point, or it wouldn't have fallen in the way it did. If we go a little farther down Jackson Street to the east, you'll find about 2 blocks down another big hole by a manhole. It's approximately this big around, about this deep, and full of branches down there. Somebody needs to take care of that. I'm waiting to get the results. I'm waiting to do the survey with the people from the company that Darwin has lined up. And I not only like them to look for the water flow, but I would like them to do the sonar to show the voids under the blacktop where the water has flowed through there and washed away the dirt that's holding up the blacktop, such as around the manhole cover and around the manhole there on Shadbolt. I was also wondering, has anybody spoke to the people that bought the property across the street from where I live over on West Elizabeth to ask them to trim up around the sidewalks. If not, my landlord has been doing it, and he doesn't mind sending them a bill. Another thing, I'm still waiting to hear on how the officers that accused me of violating my so-called probation are being retrained. I would really like to hear this. Then I have one other question. When are we going to do something about the garbage men that keep stealing my garbage cans? This is number 4. They seem to think that just because it doesn't look like an outdoor garbage can, they should throw it in their truck. This can't stand. I think I'm pretty good for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We need to discuss a few more things, but I'm sure other people have things they would like to speak about too. I've been on the internet, and some people are not very happy with what's been going on. Why do people have to fight to get FOIAs? Such as me. For a while there, I was going through every hoop I could get done, and I still haven't had some of the questions answered that I wanted. Now, there's another gentleman that people here are very familiar with, who's also having a hard time with FOIAs. I think we need to straighten that out.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, I'll close call to the public. Item number 6, approval of the agenda. By order of the president, no matters will be discussed after 9:30 p.m. unless the council votes to continue the meeting. Council. Mr. Lamb.
Thank you, Madam President. I was asking to add 2 items to the agenda tonight because of our brief length. The first one, I'll just do 1, 2. The first would be a brief discussion on the status of marina permitting in the village. We've had some email correspondence, and I don't think, I'd like to publicly have the village managers describe to us the, what's going on with the marina permitting at the New Wine Social Restaurant. I believe a lot of people are very, very concerned about marinas, boat content, and so I'd just like to have a brief discussion so the manager could explain what's going on to us.
Could you, because we have to approve the agenda as one thing, so could you let us know what your next agenda item would be?
Well, they're separate items, so can we just go for that one? The other one is more complex, and this was just a simple discussion item.
But it's a move to approve the entire agenda.
Oh, okay, so that was the first one. The second item is more complex and it's more difficult. I would like to request to add the agenda item for the village council to discuss requesting the village manager to issue a stop work order to the lumberyard project due their continued failure to comply with Village Ordinance 35.01 and State Act 57. The reason is to light a fire underneath the Downtown Development Authority's manager. For well over a year, I'm not going to get into details, they have promised to provide plans, estimates, projections, all these required documents under our ordinance and the law, and they have not. So they're currently operating a project without any of the requirements. We've given them a lot of time and a lot of room, well over a year. So they've currently spent $2.4 million on the project without a project estimate, a construction plan, or any of the required documents. We have all bent over.
We're getting into discussion on an item, so if you could make a motion to.
So my motion would be to add those 2 items and then let council decide how to proceed.
So the motion is to add an item under other items. It would be items C and D, marina permitting and lumberyard stop work order would be the motion. Is there a second on that?
Yes.
Okay, is there comments on that? Yes.
I have a comment on the other part of the agenda. But
Okay.
Okay. I'd ask for some clarification on, I think it's probably A now, the attorney services. So the documentation that was provided in the packet sounds like we want to talk about whether we're satisfied or not with the current services. I believe that discussion has changed, perhaps. So I'd like some clarification on what exactly we're going to talk about, and the reason is, I think if we want to have discussion about our specific attorney and performance, then I'd like to see some examples, and I'd like to have something to discuss. And that, in my mind, hasn't been provided. If we want to talk about something else, then I'm okay with that.
Could you clarify what your
I'm so sorry,
request is?
George, yes, I did cause a lot of confusion and whatnot. The intention is to strictly, we want to check prices and services. It's been over, I don't want to make the argument, there's nothing to do with an evaluation of the village attorney. It's strictly it's been 10 years since we've evaluated the costs and services. And since all the other village services we've done this, it's time for this one to come up. So that's the intention. So there will be I'm not planning on any discussion of our competent, long-serving village attorney.
Okay, I just was looking for that clarification. I'm perfectly fine with that discussion. Thank you.
I would say I'm not prepared to talk about marina permitting. You mentioned emails. I've not seen any emails, so I don't have any pertinent information for that. I would be happy to discuss it at another meeting when I or the rest of the council has all the information, because apparently there's emails that have been gone out that I don't have, and so would like the full information in front of me even before I get the information from our manager. And then as far as the stop work order on the lumberyard, I'm not interested in adding that to the agenda at all. There has been a number of times where a council member has asked the Attorney General to do something, has asked the Treasury Department to do something. The bonds were sold with full knowledge of bond attorneys, and I'm not interested in entertaining efforts to thwart a project that keeps moving forward, that benefits the public, that generates economic development, that solves parking issues, and it's just one after another. And I personally am not interested in adding that to the agenda. Any other, I want to check for other council comments on the motion to add it to the agenda.
Yes, I will support it.
Yeah, you have.
So I do want to talk about it.
Mr. Lamb.
That's what I really believe they should be two separate motions, because these are two different issues, but since you insist on combining them.
Well, if it fails, you can make a new motion.
Okay. So the marina, I'm just asking the village manager to present the current state of the marina applications. The restaurant has just received a permit from the DNR to install a 16-boat marina at the shoreline adjacent to the restaurant. There's great confusion amongst the citizens as to what is going to happen. I believe the village manager is conversant enough with the subject, he will be able to at least tell us what is going on and what future path he is taking. No action is being requested for that particular item. I believe discussion is warranted on the DDA issue. I also have, which I think you all received, we have a complaint, from a licensed professional civil engineer argued by the state of Michigan that is intimately familiar with the Downtown Development Authority, their activities, and has attended almost all their activities. He filed a complaint with the code enforcement department at the township who enforces, and he basically states here that they're not in compliance with state law with regard to structural elements and permitting requirements. I have to respect a complaint from a professional of that nature. So that warrants some discussion whether or not the council decides, when we consider this topic, to have a vote. I don't believe we actually have the authority to issue a stop work order. I believe that's under the purview of the manager. But I would like to discuss it in public with the full council, and I think that's appropriate. Now, it will be up for council to decide. So that's my intention, and that's all. So I'll be done with that.
So we have a motion, we have support. Any public comment on the agenda itself? Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. So that would be marina permitting will be 10C and lumberyard will be 10D. Item number 7, the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are approved by one vote. We have item A, 2025-26, winter maintenance agreement with Road Commission for Oakland County. Item B, approval of performance resolution required by the Michigan Department of Transportation for permits to work within state highway right-of-way. Item C, social district permits, Nicholas LLC. Item D, social district permit, CGKW LLC. Item E, social district permit, SIC Orion Inc., DBA, doing business as SIC Town Hall. Item F, approval of special event Lake Orion High School Homecoming Parade. Item G, approval of Village Council regular meeting minutes, September 8th, 2025. Item H, receive and file DDA regular meeting minutes, August 19th, 2025. Item I, receive and file DDA special meeting minutes, September 5, 2025. Item J, receive and file Board of Ethics organizational meeting minutes, June 25, 2025. Item K, receive and file invoice distribution report for September 23, 2025. Item L, 2025 election of the Michigan Municipal League Liability and Property Pool Director election. And item M, receive and file a planning and zoning monthly report by McKenna. Council.
I'd have to ask that we remove items C, D, and E combined as one item with the intention of meeting the applicants and asking them to come up and just identify themselves and what their future is in the village. And then I would like to bring down items K and M for comment on K, and on item M, I would like to take action.
Any other council requests? Then I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda, removing items C, D, and E as one agenda item, a discussion item, item K and M.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So, Mr. Lamb, items C, D, and E.
Nicola's LLC, are you here? Could you please come up and just identify yourselves and tell us what your intentions are for, you are taking over Anita's, you purchased Anita's Kitchen Restaurant formerly?
Yes. Yes, I'm Marta Nicola. This is my husband, Tom Nicola. We purchased Anita's Kitchen a couple months ago. We plan on turning it into a brunch, dual concept, brunch from 8 to 4, and then a cocktail lounge from like 5 to late nights.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about when will you be open?
Anticipating about the second week of November, if everything goes planned.
I'll be there for breakfast.
Okay. We welcome all of you. Anything else? Any
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Is
you.
anyone from the social, CGKW? Yeah, these guys. You guys are taking over, are purchasing,
Oat soda.
oh, soda, okay, very popular place.
My name is Craig Aitches. This is
Keith
Keith
Waddle.
Waddle.
So it's going to be similar like the Tularoo in Rochester, more of a dining area. We want to use the social district. We're going to put some more outside seating hopefully and just spruce it up and hopefully be successful in Lake Orion.
A lot of people go there. I hope it's successful. It's a good location for the walking traffic from the new parking area.
Yeah, and the new development there at the farmer's market. It's pretty nice.
Looking
Thank you
forward
for
to it.
coming up and introducing yourself.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Are there any sick people here? Well, thank you. So there's no one here from sick. So the sick thing, I didn't really understand, and Mr. McCleary informed me that Sick Orion is actually a pizza establishment. They're taking over 313 Pizza. So I got over that real quick. So welcome to our town, and I move to approve their applications as stated in the agenda.
I'll support. Any-
I just gotta say, one thing you gotta be careful of when you order online at the Sick Pizza, don't order in Oxford, because when you go down here, you'll find out your pizza's in Oxford, and you gotta hop in your car and get back.
Okay.
At least it's not too far.
I speak from experience.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item K, Mr. Lamb.
On the invoice distribution report, I had a couple of questions, but I don't believe there's anyone here to answer. The first one was, I thought that the DDA director was hired for $80,000 a year and wasn't taking benefits, and that was one of the inducements to hiring him. I noticed there's an employee portion of Alerus Financial for $13,853. Mr. McCleary, do you know what that's for?
What is the account number?
It's account number 24260-71900. It's under general activities, the very first item.
Packet page 92.
Thank you. That is the employer contribution. So when Mr. Gibb was hired in, he was eligible for retirement contributions. All the paperwork wasn't filed at that time, so contributions were not made. So this is catch-up for the months that he's been working for us to make up those contributions.
Okay, so some bunch of appropriate paperwork wasn't filed timely, and now we have a catch-up and a
These are
surprise.
retroactive.
Okay, thank you.
contributions.
The other items on the same sheet have to do with the DDA and the accounting practices and names. I don't understand this. I'm having difficulty filing. So under the general activities, then we have an account called design. In the account labeled design, there's garbage bags, there's a $3,463 payment and an $8,450 payment to contractors doing work on the lumberyard project, I believe. But it's under some design, it's not under the lumberyard project per se. Accounting practices where I come from, we put expenditures under accounts that reference the projects they are related to. I find this particularly disheartening because the annual report to the state of Michigan that the DDAs are required reports expenses in these category names. So it's kind of misleading to the government who monitors these things. The other example is economic development. The trolley expense the monthly trolley expense is there, and then there's some advertising in that account. The promotions account actually looks pretty good. It's got the fall decor, movie night supplies, event supplies, and banners. So, yes, the accounting practices are questionable. I'm done with that item, Your Honor.
Then you need a
Move
motion.
to approve the invoice distribution report and receive it and file it.
Support. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item M, Mr. Lamb.
I am so sorry to drag you guys through this, but they put everything in this same thing. So in the monthly planning and zoning report, there is an item here that's very, very relevant to many of the citizens, so I'm going to read it. The tax exempt parcels and village right-of-way inventory phase 3, full inventory, inspection, and mapping of village-owned parcels and public right-of-ways to identify the extent of improvements, encroachments on public property. The majority of inventory and site inspections have been completed. A draft report has been created and is being revised. When submitted for village review, which I think will be soon, the draft webpage to increase public awareness and a possible public meeting to present the information and comments may be arranged. So there's very many people that are concerned about that, and so I just want to let them know that's happening. The second item is the, very important things. There are two items on McKenna's look ahead and recommended changes items that I would make a motion to remove. The first item is the proposed change to section 4.03, 12.03, and 13.11. RL Lake, that's Lakefront District, setback requirements. Having spoken to the people that live on the lake and live on the narrow little roads, I believe we have no interest in changing the setback requirements on any of the homes on the lake properties, especially frontages on the narrow roads such as Mr. Stevens claims. So the motion is to remove that from their wish list. The second item that I would request to include in that motion to remove from their wish list is 4.02, 1312. RV Village SF District permitted uses. Provide accessory dwelling units and cluster housing standards for use in the RV Village District. I'm not interested in having people renting their garages and building apartments in their backyards. This is what that would allow, and I don't believe in any of our planning or council discussions we have wanted to have that. I understand that there are numerous rental accessory dwellings in the village, but these are maintained by special circumstance, either through zoning or pre-existing, zoning board of appeals or pre-existing use. So that's my motion, is to remove those recommended changes from the McKenna's list in order that they may move forward with the more productive elements of the planning and zoning changes.
I'll support.
We have a motion and support. Other council comments? Mr. Dandelides?
So I'd like to comment on the setback requirement. I can tell you two situations on my street where we've allowed variances for the front setback, and we have folks that are parking with the rear ends of their cars hanging out in the road. And Bellevue is very narrow, and people drive fast. It speaks exactly to what Mr. Stevens said earlier, and I would even support that we no longer entertain any kind of a variance at a front setback. It is dangerous, and we keep crowding the street by allowing folks to build closer to the road, and the bottom line is they have no place to park other than hanging out in the road. It's dangerous. And we had the same situation. We had a car hit my retaining wall, came into my driveway, hit my retaining wall, and flipped over on its side about 2 years ago. It's not a good situation, and we need to stop it.
Mr. Camperoni?
Well, yeah, it's not just cars hanging out. There's a lot of landscaping also right at the road edge. I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with some of these streets on the islands, off Central, even down like Mr. Stevens Street there. It's tough, and if you're not on the ball, most of the locals will move over. But the visitors, they take their half in the middle, and they're not going to budge. So yeah, it's pretty tough navigating these streets sometimes, especially with stones out there and big landscaping timbers and what have you, and car bumpers with trailer hitches sticking out. And yeah, it's something has to change.
I'd say I have no problem with the first one being taken off. I would not be in agreement with the second one, with accessory dwelling units being taken off. I am not opposed to accessory dwelling units. I would love to explore what that could look like and a sensible ordinance or zoning permitting for accessory dwelling units. I don't think it's going to mean we're going to have a bunch of trailers in people's backyards that they're renting out. But being able to put something over a garage or something in your backyard for, aging parents. We talk about being able to age in place or being able to live longer in a space. I don't think we're going to be taken over by trailers in backyards. But when we talk about affordability, that's a way that parents can potentially, or even children of parents can have a place to start. And it's also a property rights thing for me, that if I want to put something over a garage that my kid can stay in someday, I would love to be able to, have that ability to do that. So I'm very interested in taking off the first one. I agree with my fellow council members about the safety aspects of that, but cannot be on board with the accessory dwelling unit being taken off. Mr. Ford?
Mine's a procedural question. Above those recommended changes, it does say that should the planning commission wish to pursue one or more of these amendments, the commission may direct staff to prepare draft amended ordinances, which apparently they did. All proposed amendments require public hearing, recommendation by the planning commission, and adoption. So are we at the adoption part of this? We've had public hearings on this, and so no matter what we do here, we still have to go through a public hearing.
No.
These are not action items that are being currently taken. These are items that our planning zoning department has said, these are topics that should planning commission wish to take them on in the future, then they would take the lead on studying them and proposing changes to the village council
So
and the planning commission.
When I'm looking at recommended changes, they've already studied?
They haven't, to my knowledge, they haven't done an in-depth study. This is just,
So we're going to,
at a cursory overview, these are some recommended changes we could make based on what we see in your village.
would it behoove us to, before we take them off, to have that study?
So this is under the heading, looking ahead, potential projects, so no money has been spent.
Right.
Ultimately, if these zoning changes are recommended, they'll have to come here for approval.
Correct.
If we can look at them now and say we're not interested, we can avoid spending money for the study, taking the time, taking the energy, we can put it to bed right now if we're not going to approve it here. And if we don't get the approval here, then that would suggest that maybe it is worth looking at, and then we would spend the money.
Mr. McCleary?
Your Honor, I think we're getting ahead of the game here. So the purpose of the Planning Commission is to discuss these issues, decide whether they want them to be considered by the village council, and then bring these before the village council. I think it is completely inappropriate for the council to do an end run around the Planning Commission and try to make decisions for the Planning Commission before the Planning Commission has even had a chance to discuss these. I am a voting member of the Planning Commission. Madam President, you are, and we have another council member who is. These things should be discussed by the Planning Commission and considered, and then if the Planning Commission feels that they are important for the council to consider, they should then come to the council, and then this discussion would be very appropriate.
Thank you. Mr. Lamb?
I need to get my rebuttal. I'm not sure there's a problem with your children living in your garage. Okay? Personal use, I'm a property rights advocate. And so personal use of your property for your personal use. What happens here in the village is we have these things called goals and objectives and wish lists and standards. And so our consultants look for things to earn income from us. We have 3,000 people in a small, dense community that's 100% developed. We're in redevelopment phase. We're already going to have a huge population increase. There's no problem with us curbing the consultants who are just throwing stuff out in there. All right? No one asked them to put that on there. If they did, some special interest group has lobbied ahead of the game. So if I'm cutting out I know several houses in my neighborhood on my street that have excess use according to the standards of the community. I mean, the one house is for sale. They got three different apartments, and they've got a parking facility. It's right next to Mr. Stevens, I think, and they're marketing it as a Airbnb. Okay, and I'm not interested in that happening in the village. Why is our consulting even proposing this? Because they need something better to do. Almost every setback has been turned down. The last couple of times on our street, North Shore is one of the longest streets in the village. We denied all the setback requirements and sent in letters to the so I don't believe it's inappropriate for us to act on. I would never have brought them up if it wasn't a major issue to a lot of the citizens. We just snip it in the bud. Okay? They can always make a proposal to us to add them back in at a later date. Okay? But this is how things come in They sneak in insidiously, like a poison. I'm joking, just I'm making a guy laugh down there. So that's the poise reason for this. We're not trying to usurp any authority, but these are not welcome items, and there's no reason to study them, in my opinion, and so council can decide.
Well, I sat on the planning commission as well, and I remember having this discussion about these items and saying that I supported accessory dwelling units. So you can't say that nobody does, because I definitely did. And North Shore is not the only street in the village, and short-term rentals are very different than accessory dwelling units. And those are my rebuttal comments in the language that you used.
I would propose amending my motion then to consider, to modify that to consider a non-rental accessory dwelling unit, okay? And I'm not interested in considering rental accessory dwelling units, but if you want to, I will let them, I would amend my motion to let them remain as non-rental accessory dwelling units. Yep. So if I amend my motion, then I'll make that amendment.
Is there a support amendment, or support for the amendment?
I'll support.
And I would just say that I'm fine with it as is. We already have short-term rental ordinance.
Well,
Mr. Ford?
and I'd rather see it come from the planning commission than us, a couple people up here saying no to something that they've looked at or gonna look at or gonna study. I think it's important that we have more eyes on it than just us sitting up here. They do their part, and then it will come back to us, and then we can say yes or no.
Mr. Camperoni?
All right, you got me totally confused.
Yes, I would like the
Real-
motion
Real
restated.
simple, yeah. Are we putting a cart before the horse? Is that what's going on? Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear. So a no vote would be no to whatever he said, and it would start over from scratch. Okay, thank you.
Any other council comments? Public comment? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to remove the first and second items under recommended changes on the planning and zoning monthly report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
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 Motion fails. Do we have,
Oh my God, it's a shot. I felt the shot.
I will make the motion to receive and file the planning and zoning monthly report by McKenna as presented.
Support.
Any comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Who voted no? I know you did.
Just wasted a half.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, I'll make it up.
So Camperoni, 4, Teresa.
All right, good point.
So item number 10, moving on, item number 10A, Attorney Services, Mr. McCleary.
Your Honor, Councilmember Lamb is requesting that Village Council consider seeking proposals for legal services for the village, and I provided you with a copy of the council member's request. I do want to note that Village Attorney Kucharik is an appointed officer of the village. She is in attendance tonight. I would caution the council that if you wish to discuss the performance of our attorney, she has requested a closed session for that type of discussion. My understanding from Councilmember Lamb is that it's simply looking to see if there is interest by the council in seeking proposals for attorney services. If that's the case, that can be discussed in an open session.
Thank you, Council. Mr. Lamb?
I would like to make a motion to direct the village manager to immediately put out a request for proposals for village attorney services with regard to the village support and police prosecution and support, and then return with those proposals to us at the next council meeting. And I encourage and invite the existing village attorney to submit a proposal. It's been over 10 years since we've evaluated or reviewed pricing proposals or services for the village attorney. I think 3 years ago we changed village attorneys with this change of proposals. I'm proposing we accept proposals. It'll be up to council to decide what to do with those proposals. That's it? No, there's no,
Is
nothing else?
there a
to say?
second?
Yes.
So we have a motion and we have support. Other council comments? Mr. Dandelides.
So, for clarification, when was the last time we went out and competitively looked at attorney services? Because you said over 10 years, but then you said something about 3 years, and I got confused.
He misspoke. He was referring to engineering services.
Okay.
It was 2015, so it was 10
Okay,
years ago.
so it's been 10 years. So I would think that it would be kind of normal procedure at some frequency to go out and just see how competitive our, current contract is. And when I say competitive, I'm saying competitive from a service and a price. It's not one or the other, right? It's got to be competitive from both. But if it's been 10 years, it doesn't seem unreasonable to me that we would want to do that. I do question, though, the time frame. That our next meeting is 2 weeks from now.
Well, it's 3 weeks. There's extra
Well,
weeks. I figured it could.
even if it's 3 weeks, I can't imagine how you put a proposal together, you get it out, and you get reasonable responses back in 3 weeks. That doesn't seem realistic to me.
You always want a timeline, George, on everything, so
But
doing you a favor.
I want a realistic one.
Then if there's some amendment you would like to propose, I'd be happy to propose an amendment.
And I don't know what the right time frame is, but just 3 weeks just seems really tight to me.
I think 60 days would be best.
Darwin, is 60 days enough?
So first we would have to prepare the specifications to advertise for proposals, and then advertise, give a certain amount of time for firms to respond, submit their proposals. So I think 60 days is still an aggressive timeframe, but I would request a little bit longer time frame to get that done, because unless we were satisfied with the last scope of work that we had prepared.
Well, I'd willing to amend to 60 days because the holidays are coming and I would like to put some fire under. I like to have deadlines now too. Okay, after our next agenda item, I'll be expounding extensively on deadlines. So I'll amend my motion to 60 days. If you require more time, you know that you can request it from the council.
I'll support it 60 days.
Mr. Camperoni.
Yeah, I think we should look at all the people we pay and evaluate all the time. Just kind of make every 3 to 5 years, I think everybody should be evaluated instead of just, well, pick one here and pick one there. Sometime down the road, we should come up with a plan to do that. I would say, wouldn't you? I mean, everybody wants to save money. They're doing outstanding jobs, no doubt about that, but we do need to save money. So that's the only reason that I'm going for this, is to try to save a few dollars. But that's all.
So in my profession, I was evaluated every year. Salary was evaluated every year. So 5 years is too much, 3 years may be appropriate, but anything more than that, the 10 years of being evaluated after 10 years is, to me, unacceptable. It needs to be done on a more frequent basis.
So I have a couple comments. One, I was a little disappointed in some of the packet information. There was part of the submitted agenda item request said, we believe it's time to select a new village attorney, and it's only signed by a single council member. And I had multiple people ask me who that we was, and if it was me that was requesting a new village attorney. And so a little disappointed on that, as well as, although it does caution against criticism or discussion of failures, there were some oblique comments, not direct, but oblique comments toward that end. And I would support looking at all the contracts, but if we're going to do one, I think we should do all of them. That includes HRC, or not HRC, NFE, as well, as it's been 3 years, and I think their work should be looked at, or their proposal should be looked at as well. So if we're going to look at one, I think we should look at all of them, and not just pick and choose which ones we are looking at.
Totally agree.
Mr. Ford?
I think that's a good point, and I think maybe we need to come up with a policy on that review before we just start reviewing. So I think we need to set up that policy. We're going to review every whatever number of years and pass that, and then start this process.
Yeah, just from my perspective, that seems to be a best practice in the business world that I operate in as vendors or suppliers to major OEM companies in the area. It's a pretty typical sort of 3-year cycle, review and evaluate. And yeah, maybe it's something staggered so they're not all coming up at once, but it seems like a best practice from my perspective.
I can add on to the end of the motion that we, and would also request that the village manager review the other consultants for future review and make a proposal to us.
Could you clarify, because the motion that you have is to go out and request.
Right now, for the village attorney's position, yes.
I would be
it's not-
happy to support it if it was for village attorney and engineer, but not if it's only for one.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's too much work for Mr. McCleary. He can't, I could put the RFP together by tomorrow at 5 p.m. if you would like, and then supply it to Mr. McCleary. But he's busy, it's gonna take him a month, okay? So I do not want to overwhelm the village manager with tasks, because someone might feel, put upon. I think my motion is appropriate and in line with the way things have gone. The village engineer was rehired 3 years ago. The other consultants are pretty much random. I mean, our insurance guy, when was the last time we priced them out? And bond counsel, I don't know if we negotiate with them. So I think just a small step-by-step approach is good. So I'm going to let my motion stand then. And that's all I have to say.
Any other
The
council
motion?
comments?
Yeah, the motion.
Any public comments?
I was gonna say, so we're keeping the motion to look at strictly the attorney at this point?
Yes, well, if we can move to the next time, we can, if you guys think that's a great topic, well, next agenda, we can discuss. Would you like me to amend the motion to?
I'm just thinking to myself, because I think there's a lot of logic with the discussion here.
Okay.
And if it's been 10 years or so for the village attorney, then I think, from what I heard, it sounds like everybody's in agreement that it would be appropriate.
And may I ask Darwin a question?
Darwin? But I also think there's a lot of logic in coming up with some agreed upon frequency. And I'm being relatively new at this. I'm not even sure how many contracts we've got out there. So, I think the idea to ask the village manager to kind of look at when, who do we have contracts with? When were they most recently looked at, and come up with some kind of a logical flow that puts some frequency into it every so many years and doesn't overwhelm. We don't do all of them at the same time. So I'm almost thinking we need a motion that goes ahead and starts the village attorney, but part of that motion is to set that frequency up, to look at that, have the village manager look at that and come up with that frequency.
Mr. Ford?
And that's where I think it should be 2 motions, not tied to the attorney's evaluation. I want to set up the policy first. I want to be able to say, oh, here's our policy. We're going to and Darwin can come up with that plan, like you said, but I don't want to tie it to evaluating the village attorney tonight. I want the same thing. To set up the policy, maybe that would be the first one we look at based on what Darwin gets back to us about, how many years, et cetera. And then it might be the first one we look at. But I don't think I want to tie it in at this point.
So are you suggesting not doing the village attorney at this point, but do the policy first?
Yep.
When could we see a policy? a proposed policy?
Next year.
I could draft one and have it to you at the next council meeting.
So that'd be fair.
That's a good way to look at it and put everybody on the same table and then go.
I think so too. It's the only humane way to go.
Yeah.
Mr. Pepchuk?
It feels like that slows us down. I think we can do both concurrently, whether it's two separate
rush?
issues, but I don't, well, it just, it seems like a logical way to operate with reviewing, so we might as well start reviewing one. The policy will come. I think we're all saying that things make sense to review periodically, so why not start one, start both at the same time, or quicker, you know? I just want to move things along a little quicker, I guess.
So I'll then amend my motion to keep my original motion, and then at the same time, request the village manager to submit an organized proposal for review of all village consultants to be provided at the next council meeting. So that, I think that addresses the concerns of uniformity, consistency, not singling anybody out, having a uniform policy. Mr. McCleary has been very good with uniform policies in my experience, and so I think he'll deliver something that's appropriate.
Who is the support on that motion?
I was.
Will you amend your
So,
support?
Yes, I'll support the amendment.
We have public comment. Ms. Ford.
Rosemary Ford, 225 North Broadway. And listening to this, I'm just curious how it came up to be the attorney in particular. If we've had these services, was there anything in, I mean, I've been coming to these meetings. I've missed very few, so I guess I'm not aware that we're unhappy. I'm all for reviewing things, but I tend to agree with the comments that let's get a policy in place and then take them. But to start off with one, if that policy's not in place, I don't want you to be hasty either in your decisions. And it's like attorney services, as you said, there's more than just that as a contract that we have. We have companies that do our computers, we have our engineering, we have all, I can't think of everything that we have, but I think it's a good thing to look at, and I'm not opposed to it, but I just feel like this one in particular is singled out, and so I was not aware if there was something wrong. So I'm just curious as to if it was singled out for some reason. Thank you.
Mr. Steven.
One of the primary functions of a council is fiduciary and budgetary controls. And only way of doing that is to check the ongoing costs of the operation. And the way of doing that is opening up bids on a regular basis to make sure that you're getting the very best deal that's available with qualified people. So 10 years is not suitable. Something else needs to be done. And as it's written, the council employs the administration and the manager, clerk, and the attorney. Those are three specific ones that are listed. All of the other contracts are offered to you, but they're offered to you because of administration searching on that. But all of these contracts should be looked at to make sure that you're getting the very best deal for our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, we have a motion on the floor to go out for proposals, request proposals for village attorney, as well as direct the village manager to create a schedule policy for reviewing our other contracts. Is that accurate? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Motion carries. Item 10B, village tax distributions. Mr. McCleary.
Your Honor, Councilmember Lamb is requesting to make a brief presentation to council on village tax distributions, and I provided you with a copy of the council member's request and presentation charts.
just have to hit the down arrow. Your very last slide is huge. Oh, that works too.
Okay, that works, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
you'll see it when you get there. You'll have to like zoom.
Oh, it doesn't show on the screen?
No, that's what I said, you gotta use the mouse.
Oh,
or-
my
Or
God.
you can hit the down arrow on the computer.
Oh, my God. Thank you, council, for letting me present this information. You know, for many years, I've been looking at how our taxes are spent. I believe the primary mission of the council is to manage the taxpayers' funds for their mutual benefit. So I'm going to start with looking at this. All of these charts are based on the 24-25 calendar year. They're taken from the village report as of the end of the fiscal year 2025. This particular chart is the entire amount of village tax and police tax captured by the village. So that would be, because I can't see this here, it's $2,393,000. So our entire taxes paid by the citizens are 200, whatever that number says, all right? So the blue section of this pie chart represents those taxes captured under the general fund. The yellow portion are those taxes captured under the police millage. So if you understand those, I'm going to explain two slightly more complicated factors. If you look at the upper left blue portion and the two yellow portions, you'll see that the entire police budget, which means the costs that we pay for our police, are from this portion of the pie all the way down here. So the village police takes up about 80% roughly of our village budget, and it's not funded by the police millage. It's funded by the general fund and the police millage. One of the problems associated with this funding method is that the citizens of the village believe that our police millage of 2.615 millage is significantly lower than the township police millage of 3.437 mils. So on paper, it looks like we pay a lot less for our police. But the actual effective rate we pay for our police is 5.411 mils, which is significantly higher than that of the township. I personally don't have a problem with that millage or the police services or paying for police. I enjoy the luxury of a small, home-centric police force that knows the residents and cares for our needs. I'm willing to pay a slight bonus for that. The next portion that I'm going to, so the one problem associated with that needs to be addressed by Village Council is whether or not we should change our funding method for the police. There have been several suggestions by staff, which included changing the police millage to more carefully accommodate their the dollars needed, or to change get rid of the police millage completely and create a special assessment capture district that would spread the cost of the police uniformly across the taxing people. Meaning basically that each dwelling unit in the village or business entity would pay the same price for police. What this would do, it would increase the number of people paying for the police, which would probably decrease the average cost for police for the residents, and it would increase the amount of people we could draw taxes for. An example that would be not very popular with the business owners, but an apartment building with 10 units would pay 10 policing units. A single-family home that had one family unit would pay one policing unit. A duplex would pay 2 policing units. What this does is distributes policing according to the population mass and allows for, apartments just like 10 homes. So that's one method they proposed. At this time, we're not proposing anything. I just wanted to bring these up to you and show you that this imbalance is kind of misrepresenting to the populace. The second factor is these two bottom pieces of the pie, the blue portion and the yellow portion, are the portion that the Downtown Development Authority captures from our millages. They capture 434, I can't even read this, 434,000 of the general tax revenue, and they capture 108,000 of the police millage. These revenues are gone from the city, and they cause two issues. The first issue is the police. By taking the police millage and capturing it into the DDA district, basically the citizens who aren't in the DDA district are coming up with the extra dollars to make up for the deficit in the police millage that's being taken by the DDA capture. The same is true for the DDA pie here that captures from the general fund. These are funds paid for by the entire village, but the village people that live in the DDA district, their taxes are captured and used for DDA purposes only, which means that the rest of the village is subsidizing the DDA district's use of routine public services. The next pie chart is, okay, so now that we know where the taxes come from, we know where they're being paid. Well, let's talk about where does the DDA taxes come from. Okay, something's going on here. The DDA taxes come from primarily the village general tax revenues, which I showed on the last slide, about 434,000. The next larger chunk that affects us is the police millage, 108,000. Then if you look around the chart, you can see the next major capture is Oakland County, 162,000 of your Oakland County tax dollars. You'll see that a huge portion of their capture comes from the fire department, who we've recently had negotiations with over cost. The other ones are self-explanatory. They come from the various different millages that people have agreed to pay to, and then these millages are captured by the DDA. Any questions? Thank you. On to the next slide. The next slide is the DDA expenditures slide. So the DDA expenditures at 24-25 were $1.163 million, and their revenues in the same year were $1.034. So this year the DDA had a budget deficit, which basically means that in order to balance their books, they had to spend from their existing savings account. I believe at the last meeting, the DDA manager during the budget said they expected to have a budget deficit over the next several years, which means they can't balance their books because they do not take in enough money. So if we look carefully at this chart, you'll see what do they spend their money on. The majority of their money is spent to pay for the $5 million in bonds for the lumberyard project. It's $419,000, and it's about the same amount of money that the DDA captures from the general millage of the village. The next major portion that the DDA pays are wages, office expenses, utilities, websites and software, professional services. This approximately 30% of their budget is for their office and their staff. It's like $300,000. The next major outfall of their budget is the kickbacks to the village. So there's certain elements here that are going to change this year. Snow removal for the business owners being paid for by the DDA of $17,000. That's going to end this year. Payment to administration. So the DDA pays the village $70,000 of our own money so we can provide administrative services. They also pay the DPW $30,000 to do extra work. They pay the police $60,000 to provide extra work. In my personal opinion, the majority of these charges are just fabricated to get kickbacks from the DDA captures, which aren't allowed under state law. But they're legal in the current form. I don't think they're that great. So the smallest pieces of the pie here represent actually what do we get out of the DDA to the benefit of anyone from the $1.16 million that they capture. Well, looks here like they have programs equivalent to $50,000, and they have marketing and advertising for $46,000. So my question, one of the questions I have is, the marketing and ad, so out of the $1 million, less than 10% appears to be positively moved towards programs, which are supposed to be like economic development, blah, blah, blah. So these are broken down in this chart. You can review them at your leisure. Basically, it says that the biggest one is the facade improvement program, where they loan or give money to the business owners to fix up the front of their stores. That's 20 grand a year. The rest of the stuff, I'm going to let you read what all those items are. The next one is the marketing and brand marketing. As far as I can tell, the DDA spends $46,000 on putting out the most exquisite Facebook, mass media advertising, email promotional campaigns, and then there's some banners on the streets and a couple of signs. The last one here is the most effective one up at the top. This green, I believe that's the color, represents the 75-25 plan. These are the funds that by agreement the DSDA is forced to put into an infrastructure fund. These funds are not available to the general community. They're available to be used only on infrastructure projects within the DDA, and they're not allowed to be used on sewer and water projects or on street projects. That would create a great impropriety for the rest of the citizens that are required to spend their tax dollars on high sewer bills and road assessments. Next, we're going to look at briefly, so that's where the taxes come from and where they go. And that's all been determined by the village council and by the citizens on some villages. The citizens pretty much don't have a say in any of that. So to the village managers, a great benefit, and the village is a great benefit on the work of the village manager, we now have a 5-year capital improvement program for the village. I've summarized this in this table in order that the citizens may see what the full impact of capital improvement program is and who is going to pay for it. So at the time of the origination of the capital improvement program, we had $26 million in capital improvements. 11 grand in the sanitary sewers, 8 million in the water system, and 3 million on the local roads. So we look at where the dollars going to come from to pay for this large amount of money, understanding that the village's annual tax revenue income is $2.3 million, and we have $26 million in dollars to pay for. So that means 10 years of the full tax revenue of the village to pay for this stuff. It's not happening. It was going to take years to pay this stuff. So currently, our current taxes and our current funds have money available to pay for $3.8 million of the $26 million. Where's the rest of the money going to come from? Well, special assessments, which means direct charges to the citizens for approximately $3 million. And then bond sales. The bond sales are particularly directed toward the water and the sewer. $15 million in bond sales. Most recently this year, we had a huge increase in sanitary sewer rates to the residents. There were many complaints. The seniors are complaining. I believe that we sold 5 million in bonds, 3 million?
3.5.
We sold 3.5 million in bonds, which leaves a huge amount of bonds. So if you take the 3 million bonds, so you're going to see in order to finish our programs, for the next 3 years, we're going to have monstrous sewer and water rate increases to the point that we probably will be paying the highest water and sewer rates in the county. What a burden on the taxpayers we have put on them, and I am ashamed of that. The other money that we're going to get some state grant money, about $47,000. We have something I labeled for humor, so you could all smile and laugh, is wish I had a grant money. We've included $3 million in what we're hoping to be grants that we apply for from the federal or state government. So one note over here, I did modify the 400 grand. This is the money from the DDA infrastructure account, supposedly. Creek bank stabilization, $400,000. Sidewalks we don't have, which is something called sidewalk completion closures, where like streets that don't have sidewalks or sections of sidewalk are missing. $600,000. Well, we don't have sidewalks in my street. I don't need to have any part of any new sidewalks in the village. So that being understood, that's our capital improvement program. And my main complaint here in question is, is the only way we're going to be able to fund that is to run all the old people out of town. Okay? That's my question. So the last analysis I did, these analyses and charts have taken me 100 hours of careful review of the village documents. This is called the analysis of the increase in DDA revenues due to new developments in the district through 2028. The DDA gets its funding by taking the current year's taxable value of property in the DDA district and subtracting the 1985 base year taxable value of the property in the district to arrive at a captured tax value. Currently, that is approximately 75% of your taxable value is the DDA's tax capture value. This captured value is then multiplied by the current millage rates that the DDA is entitled to of 25 mills to get the DDA tax revenue. The village portion of the capture is 10 mills, and the village police portion of the capture is 2.6 mills. As of this year, in 2025, end of calendar year 2024-25, the DDA's total captured tax bill was $43 million with an estimated revenue of $1 million. So that's what they're getting right now. So what this chart here represents, these are all the current projects under development in the village that have been approved. They are in various stages of completion. They have a base value that's very small which is the 1985 value. They have if you look carefully at the 2025 value, you see they're creeping up amazingly quick. And then we look at the current captured value. And now we look at the estimated 2028 estimated value. This estimated 2028 value isn't the value of the DDA district, it is the number of the increase of the DDA district. So the DDA district is going to increase from a tax capture value of $43 million, we're going to add $38 million to it. That's a 75 to 80% increase in taxable value of the DDA district. What does that mean to the village? It means that the DDA, between now and 3 to 4 years, their revenues are going to go from $1 million a year to close to $2 million a year. They'll be approaching having the same tax revenue as the village itself. You saw the previous pie chart where you saw how much of the village the DDA eats, and we saw that, so out of the $1 million, we saw a direct beneficial portion of about 10% of that. 100 grand goes to benefit the village residents. All right. So if we take all the others, so basically that means close to $500,000 in village increased revenue that the DDA is going to get, and in which a large portion is going to end up in that fund, that 75-25 fund that can't be used anywhere else in the village. Well, that being said, that's the status of affairs with the village finances. What does that mean to us today? What it means to us today is the village council, which is you 6 members and myself, 7 members, needs to carefully evaluate whether we want to use the tax dollars in this, what I believe, wasteful, grossly inefficient process. And while the people suffer, okay? My belief is that these additional tax revenues and the DDA tax capture revenues could be used to offset these huge sewer costs and water costs. So going back to, that would be my dream, okay, of what would happen with the village. So I have one more element to point out to you on the DDA expenditures for 24-5. There's been a lot of talk about the lumberyard project and what's going on with the lumberyard project and the lumberyard project. Well, we sold $5 million for a lumberyard project, and we're stuck with the lumberyard project. So because I represent the people of the village, I'm going to support the lumberyard project 100%. Unfortunately, Nowhere on this pie is there a slice for the lumberyard project other than for the pay the bonds to be built. There's no money here for the lumberyard project operations. There's no money in this pie for the lumberyard except for the original $5 million in bonds. Consequently, it's a waste. If the DDA's funding were to be cut today to zero, there would be no effective net change on the village as a whole. The DDA board would remain intact, their staff would all have to leave, and the village would then become responsible for the flowers and the maintenance of the DDA. And I'd say if the village wanted to maintain the programs and marketing initiatives of the DDA, in order to maintain the current state of affairs with the DDA, it would cost the village between $50,000 and $100,000 a year to maintain the operational characteristics of the DDA. People don't seem to understand that all those big events are not DDA events. The Lions Club puts on the biggest events. The Dragon on the Lakes puts on the big events. The DDA supports them with flags, advertising, and brochures. This pie chart proves where the money goes. We're paying for staff, wages, and for a $5 million bond. So I leave that with you tonight on how you want to move forward with this, which is nothing else like it in the county. I have sent, the last item we have here is the very last thing. Sonia, can you make this smaller for me, please?
Here, scoot it over. Let me see if it'll. No, it's the file. You're gonna have to you're gonna have to move it over.
Yeah. I need to see the whole thing. Can't see the whole thing?
No, because it's the type of file it is. It's just way bigger than all the other ones.
Okay.
I know.
So many of you, I'll have to email you this thing. Many of you have seen this map, and once again, the public is not able to see the map. This is the famous Mike Lamb map that shows that the DDA tax capture district takes up almost 50% of the village and captures 50% of its revenue from residential properties. So I've already shown to you in my pie charts and graphs that the DDA funds are mostly squandered, and that if the things progress along the way they're going to progress, the DDA is going to eat our village alive economically. It's a fact, and I defy anyone to provide me with a fact otherwise. So what we can do about it will be something I hope that the council will discuss soon and with an immediate nature. So besides the fact that economically, the DDA is no longer TIF. The DDA TIF plan is no longer economically viable. The other caveat, which I've been working on for several years, we filed a complaint with the state Attorney General that the 50% residential tax capture was not legal. Okay, we did our research. We provided a very good legal brief. I consulted with outside attorneys, and all agreed with me. So we sent this up to the Attorney General. The Attorney General, in their kindness, responded and says, "This is not what we do. This is the direct responsibility by state law of the Treasury Department." On the very last page of Act 57 of the Public Act of whenever, it says that the Treasury Department is directly responsible to enforce the TIFs and all the laws regulating them. So the response back from the state Treasury Department and the Treasury staff was, "We do not have jurisdiction over this matter. It is the responsibility of the local government." That being said, that means it's our and Mr. McCleary, the manager's responsibility to enforce the state law. We're negligent in that. I hired an attorney, my wife Nancy, Councilwoman Mosier. We hired an attorney, and we had them write a letter on our behalf to the State Treasury Department. And we told them basically, since you've surrendered your authority to enforce the act, we would like you to allow Mike Lamb and Nancy Mosier to act as either citizens or councilmen in the pursuit of litigation to enforce the law. At that point in time, we stepped back and said, if all the attorneys that we have spoken to and, say that this is not right, I provided evidence to the village manager today, copies of all of the tax plans in all of the Oakland County DDAs, and a copy of their zoning maps showing that no residential property belongs. I believe this is a lawsuit that would prevail, and you can seek your own opinion. So I have never heard from the village attorney on this issue, despite the fact that she's had it in her hands since the spring. So I assume she's taking a wait-and-see approach. So at this point in time, I'm going to resupply the village manager with the complaint and all of the state issues, and have him and request, if with the concurrence of the council, that she render an opinion on that. So in my opinion, besides the TIF being economically unviable, it's also illegal. And that being said, I produced enough evidence in hours and hundreds of hours of data for the previous village councils have ignored. The majority of the other village councils have ignored all the numbers, facts, and data, period. I'm asking this council to consider all of the facts, all of the data, actually take a look at it, and perhaps we can then speak with the village manager and ask him for an opinion. I'm open personally to any solution that best serves the village people. So with that, thank you so much for listening to me. I was more than 10 minutes, I think. It was 15. How many was it?
Too much.
Yeah. And with that, thank you, Madam President.
Any council comments on this agenda item presentation?
Yes.
Mr. Dandelides, I'll get you next.
So I agree that we have a medium to long-term financial situation in the village. When you look at our CIP and you look at where our dollars are going to go for that $26 million, how we're going to manage that and how we're going to manage just the day-to-day, I think is an issue. When we went through the budget process this year, we struggled with balancing the village budget, and we had to do some negotiating between the DDA and the village, particularly in the DPW and police services and admin also, to make both budgets balance, okay? If you look at the TIF plan that's on the DDA website, page 53, it outlines the last time the TIF was amended, and I believe that was 2019. It starts in 2019. So if you look at 2028, the plan estimated $919,000 of revenue that would fund the DDA in 2028. If you look at the numbers that Michael's put together, and you can argue whether they're perfect or not, but it's $2 million. It's over twice what the projections were to operate the DDA. So we're clearly on a trajectory that's going to fund the DDA in the short term, in the next few years, over double what the plan committed, or what realistically that was the commitment for the operation of the DDA. And we're on a trajectory to get over twice that into the DDA. In the meantime, we're looking at a $26 million TIF plan, $26 million CIP that needs to be funded. Like I said, we already had trouble this year balancing the budget or making a budget that worked. And if you look at the trajectory that we're on between the village and the DDA, it doesn't make sense. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm confident that ignoring it is not the right approach. I don't know if we need to sit down as a council, as a subcommittee, and start looking into the future and figure out where we're headed and how we're going to manage. But something needs to happen, and the wait and see isn't the right approach. So I'm willing to get involved. That's why I ran, is because I think we got financial issues. I'm willing to spend my time and my energy to help figure this thing out. But I'm convinced the trajectory we're on is not going to work. So I don't have the right answer, but I'm willing to help go find it.
Mr. Camperoni.
Yeah, I have to agree with George also, but I wanted to say thank you. I appreciate Mr. Lamb's compassion. I mean, he's been on this nut for a long time. But it seems to me, it's like a witch hunt against the DDA. The DDA is not bad. The system needs to be fixed. The numbers need to change a little bit. The DDA needs to remain, in my opinion. It just needs to be tweaked. And the taxpayers should get their money's worth, all of them. Now, do we need to change the TIF? Sure, why not? Let's make the islands part of the TIF. Let's make it central. Let's make it all DDA, one big happy family or something. But there's ways that can be done, and I think with all of us here, we're going to do it. But no, I strongly support the DDA, and I think they support us. I wish they were here to defend themselves. I really do. But I think this is a good start. Although I do, Mr. Lamb kind of gets a little overbearing. We can't go a half hour without him mentioning DDA. But he might watch it from now on. But I think it's a good deal.
Yeah.
Check.
No, I wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Lamb. I think it's a good perspective you have. You've been doing this a lot longer than I have. So I find it helpful, and I would think all the residents would find it helpful to know and to get a handle on what money's coming in, what money's going out, and like everyone's echoing, the best usage of the money for the village as a whole. I also think too, in my understanding and spending a lot of time reading this and other documents and researching, to the point of reviewing contracts every few years, and so this has been around since 1985 is my understanding. So the way it was back then, the reason it came about back then might not fit the way the village looks 40 years later. So I think some of those similar points can carry through, but I moved here a few years ago, and then the first question everyone asks me is village or township, and they laugh when I say village. Oh, the taxes, right? It's like oh, you have to pay village taxes, haha. And whether it's higher, fine. I think there's reasons for that, and I too appreciate the police millage and expenditures there. But I think, you look at why it's higher and you start digging into it and you see there's this whole DDA thing that comes up. And there's a lot of nuance and detail behind it, I get that. But it is a little eye-opening when you look at 1.1 million expenditures and then you start thinking, what do we get from that? And you see 50,000 in programs. And I start playing back in my head, oh yeah, Dragon on the Lake is the Arts Center, the Jubilee is the Lions Club. You start figuring out where things are going, what's getting funded from what. And to George's point, these big expenditures coming down the pike at us. It just seems like we've got to take a hard look at that. It seems like both can exist, but is it functioning the right way efficiently, the way that it's currently working? So I think these are good topics to talk about. I hope we have a lot more detailed conversation about it, because infrastructure, I think, I'd like to think you do both. You have a great infrastructure that's funded and working for the benefit of all the people, and you still have great downtown events that we all love. I don't think it has to be one or the other, or one goes away, you know, but these are the big issues I think we're tasked with.
So I have a couple of comments. One, the public, if you were looking at the council packet online or having a hard time seeing what was presented, it's because the last few slides were not emailed until 8:43 p.m. last night. So I didn't even get a chance to look at them because I take the weekend to look at my packet and I can't see all the detail on the screen in front of me. You know, I homeschool my children, I work during the day. I was scrambling to get here on time. And so that felt very hard and almost a little bit disingenuous to put those in at the last minute when there wasn't time to review. And I find the whole presentation actually kind of disingenuous because the action item in our council packet or the background brief said, have an honest, straightforward presentation of where the village tax dollars come from and where they go. And if we're looking at an honest conversation about the village tax dollars, we wouldn't be focused solely on the DDA budget. Much more than half of this presentation was about the DDA budget, when only 22% of village tax dollars goes towards the DDA budget. Where was the in-depth conversation about the other 78%? Where was the pie chart breaking down not just police services, but admin and wages, all these other things? Where was that pie chart? Because 78% of tax dollars do not go to the DDA. And of the ones that go back, 6.6% of those dollars remitted to the DDA are remitted back to the village for services provided. 50% of the DDA budget does not come from village tax dollars. So if we're sitting and nitpicking the DDA budget, we're not nitpicking necessarily the village tax dollars because 50% of those are not from village tax dollars. So it feels a little bit like a smoke and mirrors game to do something, what's really happening are the nonstop attacks on the DDA. Also, in this, it feels a little bit hard in that normally when we have a council member requesting an agenda item, it goes on the consent agenda, we're able to pull it down for discussion. By requesting a presentation, council member is able to bypass speaking limits, and thus we're subject to listen to a long presentation where we're then limited in our time to offer our feedback and comments on the presentation. In the presentation, it talked about the boundaries, you know, only the 75% can only be used in the DDA district, so it's very limited. We can't do a lot with it. And then at the end, with the map that none of us were able to see, talked about how big the district is. Well, that's a big area then that those infrastructure dollars can be used on and in. When it talks about no effective change to the DDA programming, if the DDA budget were eliminated, and I don't think people realize the work that goes beyond the $50,000 in programming for different programs that the village runs takes manpower behind those. Is that going to be entirely volunteer run, or are we going to add workload to the staff? I've heard council members say that our staff are overburdened. Are we going to put that workload on our staff to create the programming that brings people into our downtown? I understand our infrastructure needs, but the prettiest sewer system is not going to bring people into your downtown. The prettiest sewer system is not going to increase your home values. The DDA is focused on economic development, and when we see developers coming in and building homes that are going to increase tax revenue, people aren't coming here because we have the prettiest water mains. They're very important. I am not minimizing the need to fund our infrastructure. That is absolutely a discussion we need to have. But they're coming because this is a place people want to live in. People want to have fun in. People want to come downtown. The Halloween extravaganza brings in hundreds of children into our downtown. Our businesses, which our DDA helps support, brings people into downtown. Those are the things that increase our property values, the economic development. The lumberyard property is going to increase economic development. It's going to create space for the public that the public has been asking for. They didn't want developments there, but then they didn't want the DDA to purchase it. It's a catch-22 in that. And so the benefits are much more than $100,000 that we get out of the DDA, significantly more than $100,000. So while we need to look at infrastructure, absolutely, by just saying, well, the DDA is wasteful, we don't get any value out of it, is not accurate in my opinion. Ms. Mosier.
So I thank Mr. Lamb for the hours and hours and the research that he has done. I believe that all of this information is as accurate as it can be. I think some of the council members are angry because they think that the whole point of this is to get rid of the DDA. Well, it may be. But this has been going on for 20-plus years. And the anger of making a change has to stop. This has been going on forever. And I don't understand. I don't understand the anger. So the world is angry. We've had assassinations, we've had people killed, and if we cannot have a discussion without an angry tone of voice, we have a lot of problems, because we should be able to discuss this without accusing, without being angry, without being nasty. And if we cannot do that as a council, this is the first council that honestly we can make changes in the last 20 years. And if we're going to be narrow-minded and not want to make any changes, then we have a problem. And I'm really happy with the council that we currently have, because it is so different from the councils for 20 years. But if we cannot be open-minded and look at the facts and look at the dollars and look at where we need to put the money and where the money needs to go, then we still are having a problem. That's all.
Mr. Ford.
Yeah, it's I think some of the, I don't know, we've been here a long time, and I've seen this town without the DDA, and there weren't people moving in. There was nothing downtown. Not in favor of doing things that are going to restrict their ability to do what they're supposed to do. I like the changes I see. It's brought people in. We spend a lot of time downtown, and I credit the DDA for that. Changes, the DDA created a lot of changes, and it was beneficial. I'm in full support of the DDA, and at this point, in full support of funding them as they are. We've collected money from them, and because of increases, and they've obliged and negotiated to return some of that money to us, and I don't see a need to be making any changes with it. Thank you.
Mr. Dandelides?
So with all due respect, you don't see changing the funding. We're going to double their receipts by over $1 million. Where is that money going to go? Right? That's the question. So I got a couple things. The idea here is to recognize that there's a change, there's a significant change between how this TIF was put together and where we are right now. And it's our job to recognize that change and do something about it. This is not about getting rid of the DDA. I fully support the DDA, but this is not about getting rid of the DDA. This is the recognition that the situation has changed and we've got to do something about it. It makes no sense to double the receipts of the DDA by $1 million without it, and we're looking at a CIP of $26 million. It makes no sense. Teresa, you asked where are the pie charts for the village? I would ask, why is our councilman putting all this information together to bring it to the council? Why am I spending hours putting the things I put together for the village office hours? That's not my job. That's not his job. So if we want to see the pie charts, let's ask for those pie charts. Those should be supplied to us. We shouldn't be spending our time on the weekends and everything else putting this stuff together. Relative to, why aren't we putting money into the CIP? I suggested a 10% budget cut this year, and that 10% go into the CIP. This council turned that down, right? I also suggested that we start putting money aside into the CIP on an annual basis. And my motion was to ask the village manager to look at the budget and come back with a recommendation. I didn't come up with a number. I didn't suggest a number. I asked our village manager to look at the budget and come back with a recommendation. This council turned down my motion by 5-2, actually. So we need to take a good look at ourselves and our fiduciary responsibility and do something about it. We can't just continue to go down the path. Things have changed, and it's our job to recognize that change and do something about it.
Mr. Lamb?
Thank you. I really appreciate the comments, the support, the criticisms. All right. I got a couple of clarifications for all of you in the public. I have never been an advocate to get rid of the DDA. I believe Ordinance 35.01 establishes the DDA in conformance with Act 57. Ordinance 35.04 or 5 establishes something called the TIF, Tax Increment Financing Plan. I recall a fellow named Harry Stevens submitted a petition 2 years ago, and the petition was to eliminate the TIF. Mr. Stevens never said anything about getting rid of the DDA. Mike Lamb never said anything about getting rid of the DDA. It's a volunteer board. How can you get rid of them? They don't pay, they're not charged, okay? They don't pay. When no one seems to, so we had banners in the streets, save the DDA. No, what it was about was saving the tax increment financing plan. And I would really appreciate in the future if people would stop saying that I want to kill the DDA. Okay? No one has ever, in 5 years, I've probably got 400 or 500 hours in disseminating village data, making presentation after presentation charts. The previous village manager provided me with pie charts, Excel spreadsheets, exact data. Joe was meticulous. I believe they fired him because they provided me with the data. All right, and I have some evidence to that effect. That's why I'm saying it publicly tonight, but I don't believe he will ever take action, and I don't believe anything will come of it. So did I ask the current village manager to provide me with data? He said he would be more than happy to provide me with any data that the council requested. Did I have him do it? No, I did it myself. Why put the burden of this personal attack and the drama on somebody else? So I'm done with that. So please don't ever bring up the getting rid of the DDA. There are numerous different ways to fund the DDA. The village could staff and fund the DDA. The DDA board could exist in Darwin and his staff, and it could hire somebody for a lot cheaper to run the regular DDA programs. There's 1,000 different ways. So please, let me clarify that is not my intention to get rid of the DDA people. The staff, well, if they got no money, there's no staff. But we got a wonderful staff here that could use a few more employees to help them meet their 5-day office open requirement. That's all I say. I just want to make sure people know that it's not kill the DDA, it's amend, review, or revoke the tax increment financing plan. Please stop talking about getting rid of the DDA. They can be funded. There's a dozen different ways to fund the DDA.
Any public comment on the presentation? Well, I'll go this forward because you were cringing there. You'll be next.
Harry Stephen. You know, I've addressed the TIF question several times, and it did go to a vote, and that was the bottom line, and the vote supported the existing condition. As we go into dynamics and looking about possibility of changing, there's not an infinite number, but there's a number of options that can be had. But one not to be forgotten is that the village is a co-signer of the bond. If the DDA is not able to pay the bond, we, the village, will pay that bond. So it doesn't just go away. That $5 million and its commitment for the next 19 years, or whatever that number might be, is real. And if the DDA can't pay it, we, the general fund, will be paying it. How to fix it? I don't have an answer. One of the things that, just sitting here, all the new properties that are being built are in the DDA district. If we were to extract them from the DDA district, all those incremental taxes would then go into the general fund, and that would be some form of assistance in the funding of the general fund without significantly changing everything else. But that would be one option, is do a selective exorcism of a district where these new monies are going to be coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ford?
I've listened to a number of things, and I know I'm going to leave some things out, but I tried to write some things down because it sounded all gloom and doom. Well, let's end it. The comment was made that I really support the DDA, but they don't support the DDA. As another council member mentioned tonight, it's brought up at every meeting by someone. It's killing them that they're getting that money. However, when I look at that, there was an agreement made of a 75-25, which means 75% goes back to the village. That money is to be used for infrastructure. We all understand there's a need for infrastructure. Since we're getting that 75%, we can use that in the DDA district. This council did not draw up the lines for the DDA. It was used, and Mr. Stevens can probably verify this, it was used initially, I believe, to take care of new sewers that we needed. I don't know how many, it must have been back in '85. But we're getting that 85% to use in that area. By having those monies to use in the DDA district with that 75%, that's other monies then that the village is getting can be used for the outer areas. So it's still going to be done. This TIF thing keeps coming up like it's, I feel like they're inferring that it's underhanded. It was approved by the state. The state brought in the idea of the DDAs to give communities like ours that were dying a boost to get them going again. Look around you. If you come into town, if you go to the DDA events, you'll see what's happening because you see the businesses that are coming in here. You had Moseri. Do you think Moseri, West Construction, Jeff Schmidt's company would have come into this community if we were dead in the old days when you could shoot a cannon off down Main Street? No, it's because it's happening. Do you know how many people? I worked at a shop downtown for a while. People would say, this town is charming. I've had people from Oxford come and say, I prefer to come in here because I don't have to fight with M24. And it's charming with all the shops, the events that it has available to happen. So you have to look at the whole picture. I know I'm not dismissing dollars and cents. That's a part of it. But I don't know of any communities that are flush. When I hear about the CIP and wanting to put monies away, are there communities that do that? I'm just curious. Because to my knowledge, and I'm not saying I know everything, but I've been coming to these for a long time, and I'm apprised of other communities. I don't know of any community that is so flush they don't have to worry about money. But yet we're audited, and when we're audited, it comes out that we're fine. So with more businesses, we get more tax dollars. And I, for one, am happy to see, I've told you a zillion times and it's old, I was born and raised here. I saw this town and it was busting, it was booming, and then I saw it die. And do you know how exciting it is? We went to a movie night last week for adults, To Catch a Thief outside. It was so much fun. Children's Park, the DDA put on 2 movies for children. People came from all over, not just from Lake Orion. Our Halloween parade, they come in from everywhere to do that Halloween parade. So there is a positiveness to it. Yes, they want to take the DDA away, and they say, but we don't want to get rid of the DDA. They can still be here. We just want their money. Well, then then why have a DDA? Because they've got no money to work with to better our community. They also, one of the things they do is with these businesses that we have, they're the ones that are going out and trying to get these businesses. And it's proven to come to fruition because we're getting these businesses in here. So you'll have to excuse me, but I get a little worked up because I see where we're going upwards, and then we've got people that want to squelch it. And it's not saying that we're not going to do things in our community as far as getting things fixed and done. We are. It's going to take time. Any government's going to take time. Government is not operated like a corporation. You don't have shareholders calling the shots. In a sense, we are shareholders. We're shareholders of our community. We had the vote on the DDA. People came forward and said, no, I want it. I think it's worthwhile. It needs to stay. It may come to a point where they're going to feel they've done all they can do, and then they'll step back. But in the meantime, we're going to have all the most area developments. We're going to have West Construction, and we're going to have Jeff Schmidt's place behind Hanson's taking place. And there's more people coming in. They're saying in the village, the realtors are saying, you can't get a place because we're a hot commodity right now. People want to move into this. They want to move in because it's a nice community. There's stuff to do in our towns. We've got great schools. So I'd like to see that trend continue and keep it going. I don't want to see us die and shrivel up again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for my...
I was about to cut you off. I forgot the timer, but I was watching. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. There's no no action item to be had on this item. So we'll move on to item now 10C. And
So when will there be an action? We can't just let this go.
Make the motion right now, Vandalita.
I don't know what motion to make. I'm not smart enough to know what motion to make.
I'm ready right now, whatever you want to do.
well, so there is no recommended motion and no one has one ready. So we are going to move on to item 10C, marina permitting. Mr. McCleary.
Mr. McCleary, I'm sorry to drag you into that, but I've had numerous calls, emails, and contacts about the DNR has issued a permit for a new marina license at the Wine Social Restaurant located on the lake. Waterside. It is my understanding that our ordinances provide for 1 boat slip per 15 feet of shoreline, and so this marina would provide 16 boat slips? Do we have, what is our position? What do our ordinance say? What should we do?
So the Eagle has approved a permit for their marina, but the conditions of that permit, if you read the permit, says that it does not preclude the requirement to get any local permits. They have to have a zoning permit to construct a marina. There are provisions in the zoning ordinance, so they have to apply for a zoning permit before they can construct that marina. My understanding is they're demolishing the existing and then, which includes 24 slots, I believe, and then constructing a new marina with 16. They still have to apply and get a zoning permit before they can do that. I have put our code enforcement on notice. Our planning and zoning coordinator on notice. We are monitoring it closely. If we see any activity on a marina at that location when they have not applied for and received a permit, we will take enforcement action.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I don't have a position on that. I sit on the planning commission, and we haven't seen anything from them, but there's a lot of hue and cry today, so I thank you so much for letting me drag that up.
You're welcome, and I advise Waterside Social to get an application into us for a zoning permit, because if they start constructing out there and investing a lot of money in a marina when they don't have the proper permits from us, I can't imagine it's going to bode well for them.
Mr. Andalina.
So do they have a permit? Did they get a permit for the village from what they have right now?
For the existing?
Yeah,
I assume that they did,
but do they?
whenever that was originally constructed. But my understanding is they're going to be demolishing that.
No, I
and
get it,
putting
I get it, but my question is, did they get a permit for what they have now?
I don't
My
know.
perception is that we just started looking at this.
Yeah, I don't know,
So
but that's
can-
irrelevant.
And my understanding is that would have been under the previous business as well.
Yeah, that's irrelevant, that's irrelevant. Before they can construct anything new, they have to have a zoning permit.
No action items on this item, so we will move on to item now 10D, stop work order on lumberyard. Mr. McCleary.
I don't know if you
I
want
might
to-
as well, because I'm gonna hurry up because there's a football game on. I'm getting ugly looks from people. So over the past year, well, actually for the past 2 years, we pointed out to the DDA director and the DDA and the board that when you spend $5 million in government money, you need to have a plan and a budget and permits. Just because you're a government agency and you have some money and a willing board and a willing DDA board to have people do stuff, that's all fine, and expediting stuff is great. But the Downtown Development Authority has no project plan, they have no budget, they have no substantial permits, and they don't have any projected plan for maintenance, operation, or the future of the facility. So with great patience over the last year, I have listened to the director tell me that he didn't have a survey because it was difficult. I reviewed that, that's incorrect. He said he didn't need plans for the barns, he was just gonna fix the roofs. That is incorrect. He didn't need permits, that is incorrect. He has promised to bring plans and things. The problem is none of the officials in charge of this money, which includes the village council or the DDA board, is requiring that the law be followed. It's another case of the law not being followed. I've sent numerous reports. Most recently today, or last night or this weekend, we got a complaint from Mr. Corey Johnson, who happens to be a licensed professional civil engineer, who's been monitoring this thing. He's been dogging them with FOIAs because it's his hobby. Has finally brought forward to the village and the township a complaint that the guy's not complying with state law with regard to structural engineering permits. He's building a deck. So he's building a facility for mass use by the public. It is our trust that this be done. Everybody talks about, well, public projects are a problem, but they take so long to do. The reason they take so long to do is because the government money is supposed to be spent safely and appropriately. Once again, he's lied to us. He has not provided the plans by September. Okay, I've reviewed the budgets. I look at the budgets every month, and the money is going out. Private contractors are being paid without bid. Personal charge cards are being used to pay invoices. Employees are being hired without proper FICA, stuff taken out of their paychecks. This isn't a private party. This is a $5 million government facility. So what I've requested, and it's not within the power of the council, I understand, to stop this person, but it's within the power of the village manager's office to require the working people on this public site to have the necessary requirements to proceed. So what I'm asking from you is that you stop work on this project, you stop the expenditure of funds until they comply with the basic necessities of any construction project. When I construct one single residence, the least I have to do is provide a spreadsheet of all the items of work and their cost, and a sworn statement that the work will be done in this fashion to the bank, to the lender. Well, we are the lender. We have never gotten an estimate for the project or a plan. We've had pictures, we've had meetings, we've had a lot of verbal drama, okay? But no compliance with the law. When does the village gonna make somebody comply? So in order to cease the wasteful spending, uncontrolled spending of my precious $5 million bond, of which I think half is left, they need to be told to stop until they comply with the same rules and regulations that myself, any other builder, any other person in this village has to comply with, which is a plan, an estimate pursuant to state law, a plan for the future of the property, which is in the state law, and an act description. They're all spelled out in Act 57, and the DDA director is an attorney. So he's intentionally bypassing the requirement. So my motion to you, Darwin, is to ask you to use your authority to stop the shenanigans and have these people comply. You've told me, I'm going to give you an out here, you've told me that the village manager has no authority over the DDA board. I agree. The village manager has no authority over the DDA budget. The village council has authority over the DDA budget. However, the work activities of Matthew Gibb and the DDA at the website are fully within the venue of the village manager, the village police, the code enforcement. And so the reason for this is to publicly acknowledge and point out to you that, in myself and others' belief, they're not complying and they're running down a very scary path. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. You and I had a phone conversation late last week, and so I'll reiterate what I said to you at that time, and that is, first and foremost, administration is responsible for enforcement of village ordinances and the laws. I have no knowledge of any law that is currently being violated by the Downtown Development Authority. The work that they've done to this point is permitted. If they're doing demolition, if they're doing repair of existing buildings, they have made application for that work. They've gone through zoning review. They've gone on to the Township Building Department. They've been issued permits to do what they do. At the point that they are constructing new structures, they cannot do that unless they have an approved site plan that has been approved by the Planning Commission. Again, the Downtown Development Authority is going to be held to the same standards that we would hold any other developer or individual to. That I can assure you. But I'm not aware of any violation that they've engaged in when it comes to this project. They do have a budget. They have about 2.6 million, 2.2 million?
Excuse me.
Hold on, let me.
They don't have a budget, Darwin.
Hold on, let me.
There's no
Let
budget.
me comment
They
now,
have a fund
Councilmember.
balance. Please, you make me use the right word.
Mr. McCleary is responding. It is his
They do
turn.
have a budget. They have a fund that is set up for the DDA lumberyard project. It's a separate fund. They have, I'm being told 2.2 million. The last time I saw it was about 2.7 million. It is a separate fund that is set up specifically for this project, and all the expenditures are being accounted for in that fund. I have no control over how they spend their funds, okay? The council has authority in terms of approving their budget to determine what they spend their money on and don't spend their money on. Like I said to you last week, I'm happy to talk to you about whatever specific ordinance violations you believe are being engaged in, and we will look into those. I'm happy to consider whatever information you can provide to me. But I am not aware of any violation of our zoning code, building codes. So maybe you and I need to have more of a conversation on that.
Mr. Pepchak.
Is it something that the village attorney could weigh in on? I'm hearing different things, and I don't know where
If I receive information that there may be violations, I would probably consult with the village attorney to get additional insight and recommendations.
Yeah.
But I don't even have anything to be able, at this point, specific to be able to ask the attorney about.
Yep, understood.
Mr. Lamb?
So the reason I brought this up is just once again to illustrate the deficiencies of previous village councils. Okay, when they issued the $5 million in bonds, the requirements of Act 57 were not met. But the village council issued the bonds anyway because they're ignorant. And staff at the time and the DDA board, you know, it was all, you know, let's all kumbaya ourselves and hug and we'll take care of everything and everything will be okay. We need the $5 million for this, you know, indeterminate project. But unfortunately, the village council is not familiar with, you know, state law. They're not, and most of them aren't even, you know, familiar with standard construction projects, you know, building a house, let alone remediating a site. And they obviously didn't hear the words that I heard, which was we're going to take $5 million, we're going to buy this contaminated old site, and we're going to prepare it for redevelopment and include some features, which included some parking, some open space, and mixed use, okay? If you read the state law, which no one apparently is willing to, is the purposes of the DDAs, especially in these development projects, are to return these properties back to the community as tax-generating vehicles. We didn't sell the property, we didn't give them the money to buy a park or to build a parking lot, okay? They're supposed to do economic development, which is create a tax base. So far, we haven't seen any plan from them. We've seen some drawings showing little boxes. We've had a lot of talk about bringing in people for this or bringing in for that, but there's been no concrete proposal. There's been no outside vendor, outside contractor to come in and co-partner. So, you know, typically a project like this, the DDA would clean the site up, get it ready for development, take care of all the issues like the environmental problems, and then they would have something with a concept plan like they have, and they would stop and say, we are going to have a farmer's market here, or we are going to have, and then we're going to have some apartments over here, we're going to have a shopping center here. But everything with these people is on the fly. It changes weekly, all right? And it's just so inappropriate and off base. I cannot imagine I have ever seen a municipal project conducted in this fashion. But the village council is fit to allow that to happen. I'm only one voice. So this is why I brought this up. Okay, the citizen people are complaining. I believe that Matt Gibb is getting away with, you know, everything he can in regarding to permits, and there's no structural engineer on the building repairs. There's no architect on the building repairs. There's no, civil engineer dictating any work. There's no plan to keep the contaminated soil from dusting up on the workers. I know you're tired of hearing all this, right? But somebody needs to hear about it. And since you're in charge of all of this and have authority over the whole thing, if you make the TIF plan go away, the village will assume the bond. So the bond payment is the same as they captured from us, so it's a net wash. What would happen to the lumberyard project if the DDA TIF got canceled? Well, the DDA would be stuck with $2.2 million in the bank, and they'd have a bunch of old barns with new metal roofs on them. The village council would then be responsible for that property and to take over the project. What would I suggest? I suggest you put Mr. Danilides on a committee with the new guy and Stan, and you tell him to go find somebody that can provide the appropriate documentation to develop a project of that nature, and then find an outside person to come in that will assume responsibilities for the mixed-use building or the bike shop or any of the other things, like regular government organizations do, like they do in the township. They have huge development corridors they've created with TIFs, where they're building a lot of marijuana stores and other stuff. So I'm done.
Any other council comments? Any public comment? All right, with that, I'll open call to the public. Just like the beginning of the meeting, if anybody has a comment to make, also limited to 4 minutes. Yes, Mr. Stephen.
Harry Stephen, 311 North Shore. Just two comments. In moving around and in tonight's agenda, it seems like there have been 5 changes in restaurants in the downtown area in the last year. That's a significant change. I don't know why, how come, or what, but something is happening that restaurants are changing downtown, and that seems to be a main core of our activity downtown. 2, this is just for an awareness to council. We have 2 recreational vehicle trailers that are on non-owner occupied residential properties on the lake. I have raised this point to our administration, and they are still there. Hooked up to electricity, one's hooked up to water, one has a garbage bin outside it, and possible sewage pumping systems that are going on for that property. The other one is hooked up to electric. It has leveling legs out on it. It has 4 tires still on it. It has side extensions on the trailer, and there's yard furniture sitting outside. We need to address this. We don't need to have another Houghton Lake in our village. This just can't continue. If we don't have the ordinances to handle this, we should create some. And if we're going to be creating some, we should be looking at another subject, which is called tiny homes, which is another viable option for people on naked property to put in things that are called tiny homes. And they're really quite cute and effective and may be appropriate in some situations, but we don't have anything to address that. So those are my 2 points for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? All right, seeing none, I will close call to the public. Moving on to council comments, Mr. Ford.
A couple things. I sit on the Pink Creek Trail as a village representative, and they have hired Ingrid Kleffel as a new trail manager. She has been part of the trail committee for a while, and we hope to get some things done. November 15th, the trail starting in Atwater Park will be used for a 5K, a 10K, and a half marathon by an organization called Run Michigan Cheap. But they wanted to let people know that the trail is still open, that it might be a little bit of traffic at the trailhead at Atwater, but it will spread out. They don't anticipate a lot of runners. And then the bridge closure, the bridge 31.7, they're reconstructing it. They started September 15th, and they're due to complete by February 26th, and there is a posted detour so that people can still get from here to Rochester, though it might add on a mile or two on what is a very scenic detour. It was fun to attend the DDA movie night on September 12th. I know that on September 19th, they had a kids edition. And then I think Saturday had the zombie walk, and there's more to come, and I think that's some of that is on Darwin's list of activities coming up. So that's all I have.
Mr. Dandelides.
I guess, piggybacking off of what Rosemary Ford said about vacant homes, I believe there are 2 vacant homes on Long Point. I'd be curious to know what's going on with those. They appear to just be vacant and overgrown. You can barely see them from the road or the lake anymore. They're so overgrown. I just want to clear one thing up. I am not against the DDA. I think the DDA has a purpose here and does a great job, and I fully support the DDA. The point that I'm trying to make is that we are no longer in 1985 when the DDA was formed. The downtown is vibrant right now, and I agree we need to keep it that way, but we are no longer in a situation where the downtown is, I'll say, run down and needs rejuvenation. We're in more of a sustained mode, and I think we need to recognize that. I also think we need to recognize that that things have changed since the most recent TIF in 2019, I believe it was, and we need to recognize that change and respond to it appropriately, or it's going to bite us. Thanks.
Mr. Comparoni.
Lions 14 to 7. Thank you.
Ms. Mosher.
I always want to thank anybody who comes to the meetings, and I also want to reiterate, I'm not against the DDA. I just want to see some funding changes, and that we can have an open discussion without getting angry. And I'm leaving for Poland on Monday, and I'll be back in 10 days. I'll be back by the next meeting.
Mr. Lamb.
On the good note, I asked Councilwoman Mosher if she could count drones out of her airplane window for me. I advised her to not go. So my report on the steeple committee is not a good one. It's raining, the roof is leaking, the ceiling is sagging more, and unfortunately the village attorney has decided to delay the project to review historical preservation. We said we're going to take the thing off the roof and fix the leak because we got a real problem. The contractor stated they will not work on a project like this in the winter, and somebody needs to get off their hiney and get this going. We went to a lot of trouble to get a lot of concurrence here amongst the council and stuff, so I think that would be up to Darwin to light that fire. Other than that, the City Hood Committee, we're trying to schedule our first real meeting. I made a formal request to the township for that statistical data on fire department usage. Hopefully we can review that at the first meeting. And that's all.
Ms. Papchak.
All right. No, my first real meeting up here, right? So I just wanted to say thanks, and I'm happy to be here. And I love the energy that everyone brings and hearing both sides of a coin and understanding some of these issues in depth. I'm picturing 2,000 people at home right now tuning in to us instead of a football game. So, yeah, I think so. But but one of the things that people say is, or I've heard, the best ability is availability. So I just want to at least let people know that I'm available as a councilman. You see me around town. I walk 4 or 5 miles most days, or you want to send an email. We love all the feedback, I think, whether it's a small suggestion or a big issue. I think that's what gets us talking and communicating and helps us build a stronger, more connected community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the rain, because if you hadn't heard reports, we were in a moderate drought. So I'm actually grateful for the rain, even though it complicates some repairs needed in here. Last week, I went to the Michigan Municipal League Convention. And I think my biggest takeaway from that, honestly, was next year we should send a bigger delegation, because I think that is where the value is in sending multiple people, because I can come back and share ideas and vision pieces that I got from different seminars I went to or the general sessions, but it's harder for me to convey that without you experiencing it. I talked to other communities who sent, upwards of 5 or 6 volunteers even to this MML convention, because they've seen the benefit that it's brought back to their communities. So my strong suggestion would be for next year to have at least 2, but 3 or 4 people go, because I think there's incredible value in experiencing that together and learning together. I went to a number of different seminars and breakout sessions. Some of the things affirmed good things we were doing, like establishing, our ethics board, having clear rules and procedures, even things like putting public art. I'm convinced after this past week that we need more public art in Lake Orion. And I heard about municipalities wanting to create TIF districts because they don't have them. And heard about, creating third spaces. One of the seminars I went to, I'm wondering, Mr. McCleary, if we could participate in this Michigan Green Communities initiative. It is a free program, but connects communities with resources for sustainability and livability in their communities, providing resources. There was even a program where communities can get essentially paired with a graduate student who will work for 10 weeks in your community as part of their graduate program. So it's no cost to the community, but they get the benefit of research done by a graduate student on a project in the community. So that was one thing that I thought was really interesting, and saw all of our neighboring communities participating, but didn't know if we were a participant in that. But yeah, I encourage you all to attend next year, that conference. I think it has value in doing that together. I know there's been some emails and concern about, I think it was referenced a little bit earlier, the village right-of-way mapping and inventory. I've had some conversations with concerned citizens that, think that we might force everybody to remove their docks, put up docks, and create public docking and essentially a beach on Bellevue or Long Point. I'm not going to speak for everybody in the council. That is absolutely not my intention in this village right-of-way mapping. I'm not interested in creating a beach in front of somebody's house on the village. For me, it's a clarity piece, just understanding who owns what, who has access to what, how do we need to make sure liability going forward, repairs, that kind of thing. It's very much a clarity thing for me, not we're just going to automatically kick you out and say, hey, public, come lounge in that space. But that project will keep going forward, and residents will be getting adequate notice, especially those in affected properties. And the village right-of-way mapping is not just lake properties or those on Long Point and Bellevue, but it's the whole village. It's including property that has no access to water. And so want to assure the public that we're not singling out individual people, individual homes, but this is a comprehensive project for the whole village. And hopefully it'll bring clarity to us all. And then the last thing I would want to say is I've never been angry in any conversation. I may be passionate and have strong opinions, but I have never been angry. I'm not calling names. I'm not, questioning people's mental faculties or anything like that, but I have strong opinions as well about the direction of things. And so I try really hard to keep that, civil, but I can be passionate and have my opinions as well. And with that, village manager comments.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, I wanted to let Councilmember Lamb know that the village attorney has completed her review of the steeple project and has consulted with various people on what we can and can't do and still try to preserve the national and state historic designation of this building. And as a result, she has drafted the construction contract for the contractor that's all ready for me to sign. So we should be moving forward with that very quickly. Your Honor, the council has received the village manager's report. It's very short tonight. One item, we received a citizen complaint regarding an employee washing his vehicle during work hours at a village facility. The appropriate department director and I have investigated the matter. We identified the employee in question, and we've taken corrective action to try to prevent this activity from recurring. I also provided you with a copy of, or a list of upcoming important dates for council's information. That's all I have here tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
We generally don't go back and forth on the comments, just because it could prolong the meeting for a long time. But feel free to ask them afterwards. So that'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
What the new guy do?
Maybe he doesn't want to.
All right, motion to adjourn?
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Anybody want to go home?
Motion carried.
Eric, the guy in your seat used to be the